I was the maid of honor at my best friend's wedding, forced to smile as she married the man who broke my heart. But her romantic vows didn't tell their love story. They exposed a betrayal that started decades before. The scent of lilies and hypocrisy was so thick I could barely breathe. I stood there, squeezed into a blush pink dress that cost more than my first car, a fake smile plastered on my face so tightly I was afraid my cheeks would crack. Before me, my best friend Clara was getting married, and standing across from her, looking at her like she was the only star in his sky, was Liam. My Liam. Or, well, my ex-Liam. The man who had not only held my heart for 5 years, but had been the first to break it into a million unrecognizable pieces. Being Clara's maid of honor was the most exquisite form of torture ever devised. Every planning meeting, every dress fitting, every champagne toast had been a fresh stab in a wound that never quite healed. "You have to be there for me," she'd said, her eyes wide and pleading over brunch months ago. "You know him better than anyone. You know me better than anyone. It wouldn't be right without you." And like a fool, I'd agreed, because that's what I did. I was the dependable one, the stable one, the one who swallowed her own pain to make Clara happy. We'd been best friends since we were 5, a bond forged over scraped knees, shared secrets whispered in pillow forts, and navigating the treacherous waters of high school. Our friendship was supposed to be the one constant in my life. The breakup with Liam had been brutal, mostly because it had been a complete mystery. One Tuesday, we were planning a trip to the coast, talking about dog breeds and the ridiculous price of houses. By Friday, he was a stranger sitting on the edge of our shared bed, telling me it was over. No big fight, no cheating scandal, no slow, agonizing drift apart. Just an ending. "It's not you, it's me," he'd said, the oldest and cruelest cliché in the book. "I just can't do this anymore. I need to figure myself out." He packed a bag and walked out, not just of our apartment, but of my life. He ghosted me so completely it was like our 5 years had been a fever dream. 6 months later, Clara sat me down, her hands trembling as she held her coffee cup. She confessed that she and Liam had reconnected. They'd run into each other, she said. They started talking. One thing led to another. She swore up and down that nothing had ever happened while Liam and I were together, that she was just as shocked as I was. She cried, telling me how guilty she felt, but that she couldn't help her feelings. She loved him. And looking into her tear-filled eyes, the eyes of the girl who held my hair back when I got sick at my first party, and who sat with me for a week straight after my dad passed away, I did what I always did. I forgave her. I pushed down the gnawing, acidic feeling in my stomach that screamed betrayal, and told her I just wanted her to be happy. And now, here we were. The sun was setting over the vineyard, casting a golden glow on the whole picture-perfect scene. The string quartet was playing something soft and romantic. Liam had just finished his vows, the standard stuff about being her rock and her soulmate. They were nice words, but they felt hollow to me, like a script he was reading. He looked handsome, devastatingly so in his tailored suit. For a fleeting, gut-wrenching moment, I pictured myself up there instead of Clara, and the grief was so sharp it almost buckled my knees. I gripped my bouquet of white roses until my knuckles turned white. Then it was Clara's turn. She unfolded a small piece of paper, but then smiled and tucked it back into the sleeve of her dress. She was going to speak from the heart. Of course she was. Clara was always the spontaneous, passionate one. "Liam," she began, her voice trembling with emotion. The crowd let out a collective, soft awe. My stomach churned. Everyone thinks our story started a few years ago, a chance encounter that brought 2 lonely people together. But that's not our truth, is it? She looked at him, her eyes shining, and he gave a small, knowing smile back. My blood went cold. What was she talking about? "Our story," she continued, her voice growing stronger, more confident, "started a long, long time ago. Before high school, before first kisses, before we even really knew what love was. It started on a summer afternoon under the old oak tree behind my house. My breath hitched in my throat. The old oak tree. That was our spot. Mine and Clara's. The place we buried a time capsule, the place we swore we'd be friends forever. What did Liam have to do with that? I remember I was so sad that day, Clara said, a wistful smile playing on her lips. And you came to find me. You sat with me, and you didn't even say anything at first. You just held my hand, and then you gave me something. Something I've kept safe all these years, waiting for this very moment. My mind was racing, trying to make sense of her words. Liam had barely known where Clara lived when we were kids. He was in a different school district. He wouldn't have been there. It didn't make sense. Clara reached up to the delicate diamond necklace she was wearing, but her fingers didn't go to the diamond. They went to a second, smaller chain hidden beneath it. Slowly, she pulled it out from under the collar of her dress. My entire world tilted on its axis. Dangling from the simple silver chain was a small, heart-shaped locket, tarnished with age. It was dented on one side from where I dropped it on the pavement the day I bought it with my allowance money. "You gave me this locket," Clara said, her voice ringing out across the silent vineyard. "And you told me it was a promise. That one day we would find our way back to each other. That you knew, even then, that I was the one you were meant to be with." The guests sighed, enraptured by this fairy tale romance. Liam was beaming, looking at her like she'd just hung the moon and the stars. But I wasn't listening to her words anymore. I was staring at the locket. My locket. The locket. You had given Clara on her 10th birthday, under that very same oak tree, and I remembered exactly what I'd put inside it. It wasn't a promise from a boy she barely knew. It was a secret. A folded-up piece of notebook paper on which I had painstakingly written, in my best 10-year-old cursive, the name of the one person I had a crush on, the one person I swore I would love forever. Liam's name. A roaring sound filled my ears, like the rushing of a distant waterfall, drowning out the string quartet and the gentle rustle of the breeze through the grapevines. My vision tunneled until the only thing I could see was that small, silver heart resting against the lace of Clara's dress, my locket, the one I'd saved up 6 weeks of allowance to buy from a little jewelry stand at the mall. I remembered the way the light glinted off it in the box, how I'd wrapped it carefully in tissue paper before biking over to her house. The memory hit me with the force of a physical blow. We were 10. We were sitting under the oak tree, its thick branches creating a cool green canopy above us. It was her birthday. "It's a best friend locket," I had explained, pressing the cool metal into her palm. "You keep one half of our friendship in there, and I'll keep the other." She'd been thrilled, but then I'd revealed the real secret. I'd pulled a tiny folded square of paper from my pocket. "You have to swear you'll never, ever tell anyone," I'd whispered, my heart thumping with the gravity of the confession. She'd performed a solemn pinky swear. With trembling fingers, I had unfolded the paper to show her the name I'd practiced writing 100 times. Liam. He was the cute boy from the town swim team, the one with the shy smile who I was convinced was my soulmate. I'd folded it back up, slid it into the locket, and snapped it shut. "So you can keep my secret safe for me," I'd said. It was the ultimate act of childhood trust. Now that sacred moment was being twisted, repackaged, and sold to a crowd of 200 people as the epic origin story of her great love. She hadn't just stolen my boyfriend. She had stolen my memories. She had reached back in time and ripped a piece of my childhood from me, claiming it as her own. The lie was so audacious, so breathtakingly cruel, that I felt a dizzying wave of nausea wash over me. I locked my knees to keep from collapsing. Clara was still talking, her voice thick with fake sentimentality. And through all the years, through high school crushes and awkward dates with other people, I kept this. It was a silent promise that reminded me where I was supposed to end up, who I was supposed to end up with. She turned her gaze to Liam, and he was eating it up, his eyes glassy with emotion. Was he in on this? Did he know? Had their entire relationship been built on this monstrous shared lie? The thought was so vile I could taste it, like acid at the back of my throat. The officiant's voice broke through my internal chaos. "Do you, Clara, take Liam?" "I do," she breathed, a perfect tear tracing a path down her cheek. "Do you, Liam, take Clara?" "I absolutely do," he said, his voice firm. The kiss was long and cinematic. The crowd erupted into applause, and I was forced to clap along, the sound of my palms hitting each other, feeling like a mockery. Petals were thrown. We were walking back down the aisle, me trailing right behind the happy couple, the train of Clara's dress occasionally brushing against my shoes. I wanted to step on it. I wanted to yank it and watch her stumble, but I didn't. I just kept smiling, the muscles in my face screaming in protest. The photo session was purgatory. "Maid of honor with the bride and groom," the photographer chirped, pushing me between them. Clara looped her arm through mine, her happiness radiating like a toxic heat. Liam put his hand on the small of my back. His touch, once a source of comfort, felt like a brand. "Smile," the photographer yelled. I stretched my lips wider, praying I didn't look as broken as I felt. Liam leaned in, whispering so only I could hear. "Pretty incredible, right? That story about the locket? She told me about it on one of our first dates, knew I was a goner right then." My blood ran ice cold. He knew. He believed it. Or worse, he was part of the performance. He had looked me in the eye for 5 years, lived with me, talked about our future, all while this lie sat between him and my best friend, a ticking time bomb I never knew existed. After what felt like an eternity of forced poses and saccharine compliments from relatives, we were finally released. The guests were heading to the cocktail hour. Clara grabbed my hand, pulling me toward the bridal suite in the main villa. "Come on, I need to fix my lipstick before our grand entrance, and I have to tell you everything." Inside the plush, air-conditioned room, she fluffed her dress and spun around, a vision of bridal bliss. "Can you believe it? I'm Mrs. Walker. It doesn't even feel real." She looked at me in the mirror, her eyes sparkling. "And did you see everyone's faces when I told the story of the locket? Your face. You looked so surprised. I wanted to keep it a secret, even from you, to make the vows extra special." I stood there silent, my bouquet hanging limply in my hand. The sweet scent of the roses was making me sick. All the pieces were clicking into place. Her shock when I told her Liam and I were dating all those years ago. The strange, almost competitive questions she would ask about our relationship, the way she had reconnected with him so quickly after he left me. It wasn't a series of unfortunate events. It was a plan. A long, patient, sociopathic plan. She turned away from the mirror to face me, her smile faltering slightly at my expression. "What's wrong? Are you okay? You look pale." I took a deep breath, the air feeling thin and sharp in my lungs. I looked at her, the girl who held all my childhood secrets, and then at the locket still resting against her collarbone. My secret. "It was a beautiful story, Clara," I said, my voice dangerously calm. "Truly, Hollywood couldn't write it better." I took a step closer, my eyes locked on hers. Her smile was gone now, replaced by a flicker of uncertainty. "I just have one question for you," I continued, the words feeling like ice shards on my tongue. "After you decided to steal my memory for your wedding vows, what did you do with the little piece of paper I put inside?" Clara's perfectly made-up face went completely still. The happy, bridal glow vanished as if a switch had been flipped, replaced by a mask of cold, hard panic. Her eyes, which had been sparkling with joy moments before, darted around the room as if searching for an escape route. The silence stretched, thick and suffocating, broken only by the faint sound of the string quartet drifting up from the terrace. Her hand instinctively flew to the locket, clutching it like a talisman. The paper?" she stammered, her voice a thin, reedy whisper. She attempted a laugh, but it came out as a strangled cough. "What are you talking about? There was no paper. Liam just gave me the locket. It was empty. A promise." My heart hammered against my ribs, a furious, primal drumbeat of betrayal. She was going to double down. She was going to stand there in her pristine white dress and lie directly to my face. The sheer audacity of it was breathtaking. I felt a strange sense of calm wash over me, the kind that comes when you have absolutely nothing left to lose. "Don't, Clara," I said, my voice low and steady. "Don't lie to me. Not anymore. I'm so tired of the lies." I took another step forward, closing the distance between us until I could see the tiny beads of sweat forming on her upper lip, threatening the integrity of her flawless makeup. I remember that day. I remember every single detail. I remember saving my allowance. I remember picking out that specific locket because it looked like one my grandmother had. And I remember sitting under the oak tree, making you pinky swear you would keep my secret. Her breath hitched, a small, guilty sound. She couldn't meet my eyes. Her gaze was fixed on a point somewhere over my shoulder. "It was my secret, Clara, not yours. I wrote Liam's name on a piece of paper, folded it into a tiny square, and I put it inside that locket for you to keep safe. Because you were my best friend, the person I trusted more than anyone in the world." Each word was a sharpened stone I was laying at her feet. "So I'm going to ask you again, what did you do with it?" She finally looked at me, and what I saw in her eyes wasn't remorse. It wasn't guilt. It was pure, cornered fury. "Why are you doing this?" she hissed, her voice venomous. "Why are you trying to ruin my wedding day? Are you that jealous? You had your chance with Liam and you blew it. You can't stand to see me happy, so you're making up this insane story." "Am I?" I asked, a bitter smile touching my lips. "Am I making it up?" I pointed to the locket. "Open it." "No," she snapped, taking a step back. "Why not? If it's empty, then open it and prove me wrong. Show me the empty locket Liam gave you as a promise all those years ago. Go on, Clara. End of story. I'll apologize and we can go back to pretending." Panic flashed across her face again. She knew. We both knew. The paper was still in there. She had built her entire fairy tale on a foundation of lies, but she hadn't been smart enough, or perhaps she'd been too sentimental, to destroy the primary evidence of her deception. She'd kept it, a secret trophy of her grand betrayal. "This is ridiculous," she said, turning toward the vanity mirror, her back to me. "I'm not doing this. You're trying to cause a scene." "You're right," I said softly. "You're not going to do it here. You're going to do it out there." Her head whipped around, her eyes wide with horror. "What?" "During the toasts," I said, the plan forming in my mind with terrifying clarity. It was cruel, it was dramatic, and it was exactly what she deserved. The maid of honor always gives a speech. I've had one prepared for months, all about our lifelong friendship and how happy I am for you. I let the words hang in the air. But I'm thinking of improvising a new one, a little story, about 2 10-year-old girls under an oak tree and a secret kept in a locket. I'll just ask you to open it in front of everyone, your new husband, his family, my family, all of our friends. They all loved your little story during the vows. I'm sure they'd love to hear the real ending." The color drained from her face, leaving her looking ghostly beneath her veil. "You wouldn't," she whispered, her voice trembling. "You wouldn't dare." "Wouldn't I?" I countered, feeling a decade of repressed anger surge through my veins. "What do I have to lose, Clara? You already took everything from me. My boyfriend, my best friend, my own past. You didn't just break my heart. You tried to erase me from my own life story. The least you can do is give me my damn locket back." She stared at me, her chest rising and falling rapidly. The gears were turning in her mind, weighing the consequences. The public humiliation versus a private confession. She was trapped, and she knew it. The sounds from outside were getting louder. I could hear the master of ceremonies beginning the introductions for the wedding party. Our time was up. "Make a choice, Clara," I said. My voice as cold as steel. "You can give it to me now, or I can take it from you in front of 200 people. Your call." With a choked sob of pure rage, she reached behind her neck, her fingers fumbling with the clasp. The delicate silver chain came undone. She didn't hand the locket to me, she threw it. It hit my chest with a soft thud and fell to the plush carpet. Without a word, she turned, straightened her dress, pasted a brilliant fake smile on her face, and walked out the door to be announced to her waiting guests, leaving me alone with the tarnished silver heart that held the truth. I bent down, my hand shaking, and picked it up. The clasp was tiny and worn. It took me a moment, but with a faint click, it sprang open. And there it was, folded into a perfect tiny square, yellowed with age, was the piece of paper. My secret. But as I carefully unfolded it, my blood turned to ice. It wasn't empty, but it wasn't what I expected either. Across my childish cursive of Liam's name, another name had been scrawled in faint pencil in handwriting I didn't recognize. And underneath it, a single chilling sentence. The world outside the bridal suite ceased to exist. The muffled sound of applause, the swell of music, the cheerful voice of the MC all faded into a dull, distant hum. My universe had shrunk to the tiny, fragile piece of paper resting in the palm of my shaking hand. It was my paper, my secret, the tangible proof of a 10-year-old's innocent crush. My cursive, loopy, and self-conscious spelled out Liam. But the sight of my own handwriting was jarringly foreign compared to the additions that had been made. Scrawled in faint, spidery pencil just above Liam's name was another name, Mark, and underneath a single sentence that made the hair on my arm stand on end. "He knows you like him. Mark." My blood went cold, and a memory I hadn't revisited in nearly 2 decades slammed into me with the force of a tidal wave. Mark was Liam's older brother. He'd been 2 years ahead of us in school, a quiet, brooding teenager who always seemed to be lurking in the background. He was the opposite of Liam, who was sunny and popular. Mark was intense, watchful. I hadn't thought about him in years. He wasn't even at the wedding. Liam had mentioned years ago that they'd had some kind of massive falling out and hadn't spoken since. "He knows you like him." Who wrote that? It wasn't Clara's handwriting, it wasn't mine. And how could they have possibly known? I had only ever told Clara. I stared at the paper, my mind racing, trying to connect a series of dots that were 2 decades apart. The locket, Clara, Liam, and now, somehow, Mark. This wasn't just a story about a stolen boyfriend and a rewritten history. This was something else entirely, something older and darker. A sharp rap on the door jolted me back to the present. "Everything okay in there? They're about to do the maid of honor speech." It was one of the bridesmaids. "Coming!" I called out, my voice sounding hollow and strange to my own ears. My mind was a whirlwind of confusion and dawning horror. I quickly folded the paper and slipped it, along with the locket, into the tiny hidden pocket of my dress. I splashed some cold water on my face, took one last look in the mirror at the stranger with the wide, haunted eyes staring back at me, and walked out of the room. The reception hall was a sea of smiling faces, shimmering lights, and clinking champagne glasses. Clara and Liam were seated at the head table, looking for all the world like the perfect couple. Clara shot me a look from across the room, a mixture of pure hatred and terrified pleading. She thought I still had the power to expose her. She had no idea that her simple, selfish lie had just unearthed a mystery that was infinitely more disturbing. I walked to the podium, the microphone squealing slightly as I adjusted it. The room fell silent. 200 pairs of eyes were on me. I could feel Liam's gaze, expectant and happy. I could feel Clara's, burning with anxiety. I swallowed hard, my prepared speech about funny childhood anecdotes and well wishes turning to ash in my mouth. "Good evening, everyone," I began, my voice surprisingly steady. "For those of you who don't know me, I'm the maid of honor. I've known Clara for almost my entire life. We've shared everything: clothes, secrets, dreams." I paused, letting my eyes drift from Clara to Liam. And apparently, even memories. A nervous titter went through the crowd. Clara's smile became a rigid, painted-on grimace. Liam just looked confused. "Clara shared a beautiful story in her vows today," I continued, "about a locket and a childhood promise, a story about fate, and it got me thinking about fate, about how a single moment, a single secret can set a course for the rest of your life in ways you could never possibly imagine." I couldn't do it. I couldn't expose her, not like this. Not when I realized that she might not be the main villain in this story. She might just be a pawn in a much longer, much uglier game. My speech needed to serve a new purpose now. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about finding the truth. "I remember that day under the oak tree so vividly," I said, my gaze fixed on Clara. "I remember giving you that locket, and I remember the secret I put inside it. A secret about a crush I had on a boy from the swim team." I saw a flicker of relief in her eyes. I wasn't going to name Liam. I was so sure he was the one. But fate, as it turns out, is a funny thing. It's not always a straight line. Sometimes it twists and turns. Sometimes other people get involved and they write their own notes onto your story, changing the narrative forever. I raise my glass. So this isn't just a toast to Clara and Liam and the love they found. This is a toast to the past, to all the secrets it still holds, to the stories we tell ourselves and the truths that are waiting to be uncovered. I look directly at Liam and to family, the ones who are here and the ones who aren't. Because at the end of the day, family knows all the secrets, don't they? I drank the champagne, the bubbles stinging my throat. The applause was scattered and confused. My speech had been weird, rambling, cryptic. But it didn't matter. It wasn't for them. It was for me. It was a declaration. Later that night, as the party was winding down, Liam found me by the terrace overlooking the vineyard. He had a concerned look on his face. "Hey, you okay? That was an interesting speech." "Just feeling nostalgic," I said, forcing a smile. "Listen," he said, lowering his voice. "I know this must be hard for you. Seeing me and Clara, I want you to know I never meant to hurt you." "Why did you break up with me, Liam?" The question slipped out before I could stop it. "You never really told me. You said you needed to figure yourself out, but that was it. After 5 years, that's all I got." He sighed, running a hand through his hair. He looked uncomfortable, cornered. It was complicated. "Was it Mark?" I asked, the name feeling heavy on my tongue. Liam's head snapped up. All the color drained from his face, leaving him looking ashen under the moonlight. He stared at me, his mouth slightly agape, a look of pure, unadulterated shock and something else. Fear. How do you know about him?" he stammered. "What does my brother have to do with anything?" "I think he has everything to do with it," I said, my voice barely a whisper. I watched as a decade of carefully constructed calm crumbled away from his face, revealing a raw, terrified secret he had been hiding for years. "I think you broke up with me because of something he did. Something that happened a long, long time ago." Liam looked like he'd seen a ghost. His affable golden boy charm dissolved right before my eyes, replaced by the haunted expression of a man carrying a burden far too heavy for him. He stumbled back a step, leaning against the stone balustrade of the terrace as if he needed its support. "Mark," he breathed, the name tasting like poison. "Clara told you? After all this time, she told you?" "Clara didn't tell me anything," I said, my voice cold and clear. "She was too busy stealing my memories. But the locket told me. The note inside. Mark's name, written right above yours. Liam closed his eyes, a shudder running through his entire body. The whole elaborate lie of the wedding, Clara's petty theft of my childhood, it all felt like a sideshow now. This was the main event. This was the real secret. When we were 12, he began, his voice raspy and low, the summer I was on the swim team, the summer you had that crush on me, Mark knew about it. I don't know how. He just knew things. He looked up at the stars, but I could tell he was seeing the past. He was always jealous of me. I was the popular one, the athletic one. He was quiet and angry. He started telling me things, that you were only pretending to like me, that you and your friends were making fun of me. He'd show me proof, a diary entry he'd forged, a note he claimed he'd intercepted. I was a kid. I believed him. A sickening realization washed over me. He was poisoning you against me, I whispered. Completely, Liam confirmed, a bitter laugh escaping his lips. He orchestrated our entire childhood. Every time I might have gotten close to you, he'd interfere. He made me believe you were cruel, that you were playing games. And then he started with Clara. My blood ran cold. What do you mean? He told her he knew I liked her, not you. He convinced her that I was just too shy to say anything. He was the one who wrote on that paper in the locket. He must have stolen it from her, wrote that note, and put it back, making her think it was some secret message from a friend of mine. He told her to be patient, to wait for me. He fed her this fantasy for years, turning her obsession into his weapon. It was monstrous. A long con played by a disturbed teenager, planting seeds of deceit that had now bloomed into this catastrophic wedding. Clara hadn't just been a thief. She had been a victim, manipulated since childhood by a master puppeteer. Her betrayal was still real, but the source of it was so much more sinister. So when you and I finally got together after college, I trailed off, the pieces clicking into place. He lost his mind, Liam said. He told me if I didn't break up with you, he would tell you things, lies, vicious, reputation-destroying lies about your family, about me. He threatened to ruin both our lives. He was obsessed, unhinged. I was scared. I didn't know how to fight him, so I ran. I broke up with you to protect you from him. The cruelest irony of it all crashed down on me. The breakup that had shattered my world hadn't been about him falling out of love. It had been a desperate, misguided attempt to save me. And in the vacuum I left behind, Mark had finally pushed his two pawns together. He'd made sure Liam, broken and isolated, reconnected with Clara, the girl he'd been grooming for this role her whole life. He had finally won his twisted game. I am so sorry, Liam whispered, tears welling in his eyes. I was a coward. I should have told you. I should have fought him. But I was so afraid of what he would do. Marrying Clara. It felt like the only way to finally be free of him, to give him what he wanted so he would finally leave us all alone. Just then, Clara appeared in the doorway to the terrace. Her face was pale, her eyes red-rimmed. She had clearly heard everything. The fight drained out of her, replaced by a look of utter devastation. He told me, she began, her voice trembling. He told me you wrote my name in stars on your textbook. He told me you asked him for advice on how to talk to me. All of it. All of it was a lie? Liam couldn't even look at her. He just nodded, the picture of a man trapped in a prison of his own making. My anger toward Clara had evaporated, replaced by a profound, aching pity. We had both been puppets in Mark's cruel show, our lives manipulated for his sick amusement. Standing there, under the romantic lights of a wedding that was built on a foundation of poison, I knew what I had to do. I walked over to Clara. I didn't hug her. The chasm between us was too wide for that, but I met her gaze. He played us, I said softly. He played both of us for decades. I then turned to Liam. And you let him. You chose silence over truth, and look where it got all of us." I took a deep breath. There would be no dramatic scene, no shouting match. The truth was quiet, and it was devastating enough on its own. "I can't be a part of this lie anymore," I said, my voice firm. "Neither of you should be." I walked away from them, leaving them to stand in the wreckage of their wedding night. I didn't look back. I found my parents, told them I was feeling ill, and got a ride home, the tarnished silver locket feeling heavy in my pocket. The next morning, I got a text from Liam. "She's gone. Left last night. The marriage is over before it even began. I'm going to get help, and I'm going to finally face my brother. Thank you for setting me free." I never saw Clara again. I heard through the grapevine that she moved across the country, seeking a life where she could start over, free from the ghost of a love story that was never hers. My friendship with her was over, a casualty of a war we never knew we were fighting. As for me, I finally felt the wound from my past begin to close. The betrayal still stung, but it was no longer a mystery. It had a name and a face and a pathetic, cruel motive. I took the locket and the tiny, powerful piece of paper to the old oak tree, which still stood behind Clara's childhood home. I didn't bury them. I sat there for a long time, looking at the names, Liam's, Mark's, my own, and then I set the paper on fire. I watched it curl into a black ash and get carried away by the wind, releasing the last hold that decade-old secret had on me. It wasn't the fairy tale ending I had once dreamed of, but it was a resolution. It was the truth. And for the first time in a very long time, it was mine.